Hello and welcome to Calm the Pharm podcast, where pharmacy business meets legal wisdom, minus the headache. In each episode, we share practical legal tips and real-life examples to help you run your pharmacy with confidence. I'm your host, Sarah Stoddart. Thanks very much for joining us. Today on the podcast, we're tackling part 2 of our partnerships discussion, and today is a big one. Today is all about money and distribution of money. So what happens when one partner wants to reinvest everything, but the other relies on the money that comes out of the business to pay their mortgage? Profits and distributions don't just deal with money, and that's really important to keep in mind. They actually deal with the lifestyle expectations of each partner, and those expectations can differ greatly depending on where in the career journey each partner is. Some partners are happy to live off their drawings, or they might have grand plans, or they might want to reinvest it back into the business, whereas others are heavily reliant on those drawings to pay their living expenses. Regardless of what way your partnership goes and the stages of life that your partnership is in, it is important to be on the same page and clear on each other's priorities. In this regard, it's a little bit like a marriage. You need to be having discussions around what's important to each partner, and ideally as early as possible, so that resentment and other issues don't build along the way, ultimately leading to a partnership dispute. So before you put your pen to paper on your partnership agreement and documenting your agreement around money and distributions, you need to ask yourself and each other some key questions. The first one, when will distributions be paid? You might want to discuss whether drawings will be made to the partners monthly, quarterly, annually, and that will obviously depend on how the partners use the money from their business and how often they need that to be paid to them. The other thing to consider is whether or not there is a requirement to pay other debts first. So this might occur where a partner has used the pharmacy as security for a loan. So a partner might have come into the business after the business had already been established, and as part of their funding to purchase their interest, they may have used the business as security. If that has happened and the other partners in the business don't have the same arrangement with their financier, it may be that the other partner's preference is to be sure the loan is repaid first before the partner actually gets the money and can use it for other purposes. So by this I mean the partners might want to specify in the agreement that any loans whereby the business is used as security must be paid down from each partner's drawings first before the money can be applied to other expenses or in other ways. What if a partner is paid too much? When will that overpayment be repaid? So you may realise this on the regular cycle of payment of distributions, but it may be that it doesn't come out until the end of year wash up, I suppose, in the accounting. So if there has been an overpayment to a partner, particularly where drawings are paid on an average or an advance basis, you need to talk about and decide when those overpayments will be repaid. And importantly, if you are a partner in a partnership arrangement and you are taking drawings without absolute certainty that that will actually be the amount that you're entitled to, then you should keep that in mind and ensure that you keep some money in the bank, so to speak, so that if you do need to make a repayment, that can actually be made in a timely fashion. The next consideration is how much money will be retained in the partnership. So what will be kept in the business to be reinvested in due course? You might have grand plans to do an extension or put a robot in or similar. So you need money to be able to do that. And that money obviously needs to be kept in the business before any distributions are made. And finally, when will the partnership make financial investments? So if you are looking to do those things I just mentioned, when will they actually happen? Will it be at a particular point in time, so when the partnership is, say, 5 years old, or will it be when there's a certain amount of money in the bank based on what the partnership is putting aside on a regular basis to pay for those sort of things? So these are the kind of questions you need to be asking yourself and each other before you put pen to paper on your partnership agreement. And the key thing to remember here, or one of the key things to remember, is that most disputes about money aren't really about money. They're about fairness and silence where clarity should have been. So what that means is there's disputes that are happening that are around the money, but it's not actually about the dollars. It's about ensuring fairness between the partners and the need for clarity where there hasn't been a discussion beforehand. So it's really important to keep in mind, and that is why you need to be having these partnership discussions really early in your partnership relationship. So how do we achieve the clarity? Well, once you've asked the hard questions, you need to then take action and document it in a partnership agreement. So here's what those actions look like arising out of those questions that we just went through. Firstly, communication. You need to communicate with your partners, and you need to be doing that now, early in the piece. You need to be having the uncomfortable money discussion. And the earlier that you have it, the quicker you will understand whether the partners are on the same page and whether clarity can actually be achieved. If you can't get on the same page, it's better to know that at the start of the relationship than when you're already deep in business together. Hopefully, if you've had that communication piece and all is okay, the next action is to decide. So you decide on the money questions. When will distributions be made? What will be retained as capital? When do loans have to be repaid, etc. And an early decision on these questions before you're really in the thick of it helps with the objectiveness in the future. So in the future, if an issue arises, you are able to act rather than react because you will have had these discussions and put a plan in place. Thirdly, manage. Manage your own personal finances around the decisions being made by the partnership. As a partner, you are privy to those decisions, so you need to make sure you consider and plan for how those decisions will impact on your personal finances. The last thing you want is the partnership falling apart because of a poor decision made in your personal life, which then goes and impacts on your partnership relationship. And finally, I would encourage you to develop a spending matrix to deal with the decision-making processes around money, particularly around when money will be spent, when it will be invested, retained in the business, etc. You need to be clear on those things so that you know how much you're prepared to spend, when you're prepared to spend it, and whether there's any particular milestones that need to be met. So that's it about money and distributions today. As you'll see, the key thing there is to really ask the questions. There's no right or wrong answers. It's just about asking the questions and getting to an agreed point within your partnership so that you can all be on the same page moving forward and avoid issues in the future. I hope that's been helpful. I look forward to talking to you again soon.